Hello, everyone. Good evening. It is Sunday. It is time to delve into the Liverpool transfer news for today. And of course, it remains dominated by Fabinho and by Jordan Henderson, both men strongly linked with the move to the Saudi Pro League. Jordan Henderson, Steven Gerrard's Al-Ettifaq, and Nuno Espirito Santo's Al-Ittihad in for Fabinho. Two transfers, both at different stages, shall we say, at this point. One looks very much like it's going to be happening sooner rather than later, and the other one leaves a player in a little bit of limbo. Let's be perfectly honest on this. If you are live with me right now, you can join in with the discussion. Use the live show chat. If you're a Legend tier subscriber on Redman Plus, you can use the Discord to delve in as well. The best comments as we go along, I'll be reading out any interesting points as well. So yeah, be at your best, be at your most interesting and effervescent best, and I'll try and feature as many as possible. For like example, Eric Sevenhag, who says bang on time. Yeah, absolutely. Bang on time. We managed to nail the live stream. Basically, Aaron's got to get off. So he wants to get on time for this one. We've got one, a super chat straight away before we even I've read through a story yet from Stevie G. Is that your actual name, or is this a clever way to do the Steven Gerrard nickname? And if it is your name, was that cool growing up, having the name that was effectively Steven Gerrard's nickname? Was it his nickname? Yeah, I'll do. Anyway, super chat. If Hendo stays, does he lose the captaincy? That is a big question. One I don't have the answer to, a definitive answer to. I suspect the answer would be no. I suspect it would be no. I don't think he would. I don't think he would use the captaincy. Wow. And he follows up. Yep, actual name. Well, Stevie, was that a cool thing? Or, I presume, one would presume you're a Liverpool fan. Was that? Are you older or younger than Steven Gerrard as well? Do let me know that. Yeah, I don't think he will. I don't think this is, and look, because I think there's a reason why Henderson is on the pre-season tour and Fabinho's not. It's because it's Jordan Henderson, and he is he's just a leader, isn't he? He's a natural leader, hard worker. And that's not to say Fabinho isn't, but one's the captain of Liverpool and has been for 7 years, whatever, at this point. And the other one's obviously a very, very, very good footballer and one of the best in the world in his time at his peak for us. But there's differences that I can't see Henderson as the kind of player who's going to give any less. Because of anything that we've gone through, but he is in a very awkward situation right now, and there's no way he's not had the piss ripped mercilessly out of him by that Liverpool squad to turn it off. Oh, where's your big move? Oh, where's your big move? I'm not sure. I'm not certain he would have it taken off him. But if people are watching, in fact, Aaron, should we do a poll? Yeah, we'll do a poll in the live show chat. Do you think if Henderson stays, should he keep? Or does he lose the captaincy? Yeah, we'll go from Stevie's comment for that. So anyway, on the show, I'm going to read through some of the news stories just to catch you all up on what the latest is with Fabinho and Henderson. And we've had a number of names linked. I want to discuss some of those with you as well. So yeah, we'll start before we get too far down the rabbit hole and get ahead of ourselves. I'm going to go to This Is Anfield. Just to catch us up. So I think, obviously, we've known this now for a day or so, but Fabinho has been left out of the tour to Germany after the 40 million bid was received. So yeah, Al-Ittihad have bid £40 million for Fabinho. Liverpool have travelled to Germany for their pre-season training camp, and Fabinho has not gone along with them. So they say, This Is Anfield understands 40 million bid from Al-Ittihad has been received by the club, meaning Fabinho stays behind to sort out his future. It's a significant development. The season midfielder move one step closer to a Liverpool exit this summer after 5 years with the club. Al-Ittihad, the club to have made the offer for Fabinho, are managed by Nuno Espirito Santo, former Wolves boss, who briefly coached the number 3 when they were at Rio Ave together in 2012, which is a cool little tidbit of info. No, I didn't know this, and there needs to be a more concise. I think that there's a place in the market for a very concise website that tells you which of the Saudi clubs have signed which players. what Al-Ittihad, who were after Fabinho, have also signed Karim Benzema and N'Golo Kante, plus Jota from Celtic this summer, as the region continues to poach players from across Europe. Fabinho was Liverpool's second most used player last season. His exit will force Liverpool to act in the transfer window with an experienced and specialist defensive midfielder, a non-negotiable 40 million fee. For the 29-year-old is one the Reds would always have to seriously consider, but they will be defined by how they seek to replace a player affectionately known as Liverpool's lighthouse. Before I move on with this, I want to know, you guys watching, are you happy with 40 million for Fabinho? Because since this kind of broke on Thursday, Friday, it's been a busy weekend, so I've been in the company of lots and lots of different people, and the question I've sort of posed along the way is, my general take on it, for what it's worth, is I think 40 million feels like the right value for a 29-year-old top-level DM for a club in Europe. Like, when you consider, look, Man United are no great barometer because they're just morons when it comes to buying footballers, but they paid 60 plus 10 in add-ons for Casemiro a year ago, who I think is a year older than Fabinho. I look at that and think, if Saudi's meant to have all this stupid money, I'd like to see us get a bit more than 40. If I may, I just think 40 feels like a solid valuation for a 29-year-old international caliber DM who's won everything. Who's got 3 years left on his contract. That's just, I don't know. That's my general take on it. Right, we've had the poll results in, and 64% say Jordan Henderson should stay as captain if he stays at Liverpool, and 36% say he should be removed as the Liverpool captain. So cool, interesting to know. Always good to get a kind of, I can see where people are at with all this stuff. Here's a good one before I move on. From Gray B, says, "Hey Paul, big opportunity for some young midfielders this pre-season. Keep up the great work." It is. I mean, that's always the positives, is the avenues that it opens for people to step up. And one thing I can tell you conclusively about Liverpool, and it's very hard to speak in absolutes about anything in the world, but this football club has a wonderful tradition of, when the chips are down, the pressure's on, and you think that everything's going to fall apart, someone will step up to make themselves the hero. Someone will grab the opportunity to make a name for themselves. I've seen it happen time and time again. I would rather it be someone who's ready-made, but we'll come to that in a second. It's Stro. Hello, mate. Good to see you on the stream. Run the likes up, people. Hand on heart, do you think Hendo stays or goes? I honestly, mate, when this broke, my immediate reaction was no chance Jordan Henderson goes. And I've touched upon this before, and I know it's a bit of a hot button topic, but because of the advocacy for the LGBT community, I just thought someone would point that out to him, and honestly, and he would just be like, "Yeah, you're right. It's a bit of a bad look for me to then go and take the money there." I've obviously had a lot of people back and forth with me on the comments on that. Look, it's not my place to say what. Look, we've had Paul Mann from Cop Outs on in the studio today, giving his opinion. I can't speak for. Not that Paul speaks for the entire gay, lesbian, bi, transgender community or whatever, but it's more personal, more personally affects him than it does me. And I can understand the upset from the community, and I thought that would be enough to make Jordan think, I just don't think I can. Without making the moral judgment, obviously, look, we live in a world where money talks. I just it didn't feel a very Jordan Henderson move to me. So when it was like, oh, he's agreed personal terms like that, I was a little taken aback. And it looks very much like it's all just down to the clubs agreeing a fee now. So if that's the case, I can't see how Henderson doesn't leave. It would be a bit strange at this point for a club that's going to pay a player £700,000 a week, give or take, to then balk at the idea of paying 10 to 15 to 20 million pounds for the player, instead of maybe 0 to 10 that they were maybe hoping for. So the fact that he's gone on the preseason tour, it's more time to reflect. And I think sometimes, in big moral decisions, the more time you have to reflect, the more time you've got to live with it, and often you find there's turnarounds. I mean, we saw this with Steven Gerrard. I think there's a world where, in those couple of seasons where Chelsea were really caught him, if it had just been bang, bang, and he'd just been able to just make the decision and go, I think he might have done, and he might not have been able to stay, he might not have stayed at Liverpool, but the longer you have to live in it, the more you sit in it, and you go to bed late at night, and you're in your own head, and you're thinking about the ramifications of what your actions are. If the Fabinho Henderson situations were kind of reversed, but at the moment they're not. So yeah, anyway, that's my very long-winded quick take on it, to be perfectly honest. AJ has asked a question in the super chat. AJ, I'm going to just go through a couple more articles and I'll come back because it refers to the topic we've got lined up in a second. Just to give you a little bit more, then Fabrizio Romano's been talking about Fabinho this afternoon on Twitter. It says Liverpool and Al-Ittihad are discussing key details of the Fabinho deal, including instalments, payment terms and more, after official proposals submitted. Fabinho agreed terms after speaking to Nuno, but clubs need to negotiate details before green light talks on even today. So yes, the Fabinho negotiations continue today, according to Fabrizio Romano. And fine, I mean, I just want Liverpool to get the best deal here. Ultimately, there's Liverpool can't afford to rest on sentiment, and we've been very good, I think. And there's a fine balance between keeping footballers against the will. I don't think we like to do that, but also not to the detriment of what you're trying to do. And that's the issue. I think it would have been easier to let Thiago go because of the three. Fabinho played the most minutes. He played more minutes than any Liverpool midfielder last summer. He's the youngest of the three, and he's the only specialist in that position that we are. Experienced specialist. Pajetic might be considered that, but he's 18. I think it's a bit too soon to really be saying he's a senior, a nailed-on week in, week out footballer for us. Certainly not one who's going to go and play 3,500 minutes next season for Liverpool. I'd be shocked if that was the case. Jordan Henderson is the club captain, and Thiago, though probably technically the best footballer of a lot of them, has the same injury issues. He is the wrong side of 30, but he's not got the level of attachment to the club and the position he plays. Obviously, it looks like we're kind of moving beyond him. I think that, they're the ones where it would have been a really easy decision if he was the one he was bid for. But everything around this is so complicated. But the point of being is, Fabinho and Henderson were part of Liverpool's plans for new season. I'm glad that they're not just being. I don't want Liverpool to be pushed, pulled, harried or bullied into accepting any deal that's not perfectly right for Liverpool. Players can do what the players want to do. Players come, players go, players can move on. They can have their heads turned. And frankly, if they don't want to play for Liverpool anymore, whatever, there'll be more footballers. There's always more footballers. There's always new guys to come in and play for the football club. There always will be, as much as we get personally attached to certain footballers along the way. I want Liverpool to just get this done right. So hopefully, they extract the most value possible out, particularly out of this Fabinho, because that looks like it's going to be the biggest deal. But don't be bullied over the Henderson stuff, because particularly Henderson, I think Henderson would be able to kind of. I don't think he's a down tools kind of fella, to be perfectly honest. Here's a good one from Ernie Copite. Actually says. Once this message comes up on my screen, I don't want Hendo leaving under a cloud after all the years of good service. If people are going to be hateful about it, he should stay. I think the thing is, he's such a good guy and such a good character. I don't think ultimately people would be hateful. I mean, look, there's people hateful about everything. There's literally people hateful about, people could argue what order a zebra crossing goes in, whether it's black, white or white, black, because people are just hateful, argumentative individuals. Some people are. But I get the impression, ultimately, I think he'll go with fond wishes. And that was one of the things that Paul Lamont was keen to stress, as much as there's a moral issue on this. Jordan Henderson, the player, has been a magnificent footballer for Liverpool, and that should be very well remembered if he does in fact leave. It's just, I think there is a little cloud and there is a little sour taste to it. And that's, not for everyone. And this is the issue when you start to get into moral things. Some things cross some people's moral boundaries and some things don't. Every one of us has got our moral boundaries on something, whether we realise it or not, and you don't often realise it until someone comes and tests those, but we've all got them. We've all got our trigger points. Oh, before I crack on with this, we have got a new member. Thank you so much, Adam, for pointing this out. Nick Pryor, great name. Nick, N-I-K, Pryor, goes on, as always, our no expense spared, fabulous YouTube members board. Thank you so much, joining as a first teamer here on YouTube. Thank you so much. Right. Okay, cool. Let's just quickly move things on, because obviously the big conversation point really is, and I've seen a lot of people mention it in the comments. We've got one here, which I'll come to in a moment. Henderson, anyways, verbally agreed a 3-year contract with Steven Gerrard's Al-Ettifaq, worth close to 700,000. This is James Pearson, The Athletic, but with no agreement between the clubs over a fee board of the playing for Germany. Senior Anfield figures have dismissed suggestions that Henderson, who has 2 years remaining on his current deal, could either be granted a free transfer or sold for a fee as low as 10 million. Defender Kalidou Koulibaly, 32, recently moved from Chelsea to Al Hilal for around 20 million, and Liverpool regard that figure as a reference point. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And we move things on to talk of replacements, and this has been, I guess, the biggest talking point over the weekend. There's a couple. And Dominic King has been one to try and sort a little bit sort of the wheat from the chaff on this one. He does say Moises Caicedo is almost certain to join Chelsea this summer, so he won't be replacing Fabinho. And he says Aurelien Tchouameni looks to be unattainable this summer as well. We know he was very strongly linked with us last summer before choosing a move to Real Madrid. The rumour mill has it that Real are trying to generate some funds to make a move for Mbappe. Tchouameni's not needed, particularly now with Jude Bellingham coming into the club. Could he be back on the market for the right price? Dom King seems to think not so much. So there is, it does look like those ones are being shut down. And the Caicedo one was the first one. The second these rumours were being touted for Fabinho and Henderson, it was like, well, can we just go and make that move for Moises Caicedo, because he's the one who seems to be, of the Premier League links in particular, that kind of rank above. But according to Dom King, he doesn't think it's likely that will be the case. And he goes on to expand, actually saying the very fact Fabinho has been left behind, Liverpool's decision, he says, makes it almost certain that he will join Al Hilal. He shares the same agency as Nuno Espirito Santo. Intriguing that Calvin Phillips is under consideration, along with Lavia, Gravenberch and Amrabat. In fact, this is Anfield picked up a little bit on this, reporting from Mel Reddy as well, who tweeted, Liverpool have been assessing longer-term candidates to replace Fabinho. Profile might shift as they'll require an immediate starter. Among the names mooted have been Sofiane Amrabat, Ryan Gravenberch, Calvin Phillips and Romeo Lavia. Moises Caicedo not on their list. What do we think then of those names? I'm just going to hit you with it. Massively underwhelming. And it's interesting. I think Mel nailed it there. I think in a world where you keep Fabinho, you've got a 29-year-old there, and Romeo Lavia makes perfect sense. Perfect sense, because you say to Fabinho, right, and I'm a big fan of talking about minutes on the pitch, because I think it's a good barometer for how often a footballer plays for you, the best even. You want to knock Fabinho's minutes down from 3,500 to maybe 2,500, and then you want his understudy to be able to come in. And that's not because of 5 subs. That can be in a variety of ways. That can be one plays 60, one plays 30, and then flip that around in games. Someone comes off the bench, and it can also just be, clean starts, in various tournaments. So you've got your cup starters and your Europa League starters, etc., etc. And then you hope that someone like Romeo Lavia is then ready to make the step up. A year's time, Fabinho's 30, and then he'll be 31 going into the following season. He's got 2 years left on his contract. He's still in a very strong negotiating position, and that's when you start to look at taking an offer, taking that 40 million offer for Fabinho potentially, and you then go and spend that and add that to your ranks. And maybe you've realised that your squad's gelled in a really good way. You add your new transfer budget for that summer, plus that 40 million. And then if you need to, you can go and get your 24-year-old about to turn world-class footballer for that position if needs be. Whereas I think that's fine. Whereas this summer, if you're getting rid of Fabinho, then Liverpool needs some. Fabinho is right now starting, if he stays, which he's not, he starts the first game of the season and he starts the second game and he starts that first run of fixtures. If he's not going to be there, Liverpool needs someone capable. And a 19-year-old from Southampton who's played a grand total. I looked into this. 7,700 minutes in his entire career, and that is under 18s football. And that's 2 seasons. Fabinho does that in 2 seasons, playing senior top level Premier League and Champions League games. This is a kid, a very promising kid with lots of stuff going for him and could have a very bright future in the game. But he's not ready to be Liverpool's. He's not good enough to be Liverpool's starting DM for 40, 50 games a season. And that's why the profile needs to shift. So that's what's interesting about these names. We continue with this. Sofian Amrabat is 27. Ryan Gravenberch is 21. Calvin Phillips is 20. Oh, sorry. So Amrabat's 26 going 27. Calvin Phillips is 27 going 28. And Lavia is 19. There's a real mixed bag in there. And not one of them, I don't think, is as good as Fabinho. Now, Fabinho was rubbish last season. He was. So he might not be as good as himself anymore. And that might bring him closer in line with some of these guys. But Amrabat's playing for Fiorentina at a Conference League level. Ryan Gravenberch got the big move to Bayern Munich, but couldn't get into Bayern Munich's team. Calvin Phillips is really injury prone. He's a good footballer, but can't get in Man City's team. And Romeo Lavia is a kid. Big concerns for me if that's the pool which Liverpool are shopping in. They could get any of them, and they could all turn out to be absolute superstars for Liverpool. Let me qualify all of this, because coaching and training and having a boss manager and boss facilities means you can improve players. You absolutely can. But just on paper, looking at the names, I find it a little concerning. Right, we've got a ton of super chats here. I apologise to keeping everyone waiting. Back to AJ then. Thank you so much, AJ, for waiting for me to read this one out. Paul, thoughts on the DM market? It feels like either a young player, aka Lavia, or an experienced one such as Paulinho, but for silly money, worrying. Yes. This is the thing. Liverpool having more money to spend doesn't change my opinion on Lavia. £50 million for a kid who's made 30 Premier League appearances is ludicrous money. It just is. It's stupid. That's like when you consider that you've nearly bought both of your replacements were around that price. You average out what we spent on our midfield so far, it's about 50 million quid and per player, and both are really, really experienced, top international caliber footballers. £50 million for a 19-year-old defensive midfielder and it's not even about, because again, just to clarify this, then these players could be an absolute worldie. So you could be paying 50 million, and to use the off-travelled, off-used notion of that could be your DM sort of for the next 12 years. Absolutely. But the scale of the risk at which you undertake when you spend that much money on someone that young, they've not even finished growing. Things happen at that age. That's why Liverpool target 21, 22, 23-year-olds predominantly. And the greatest successes we've had in buying footballers has been around that 22, 23. You're just ready to become a genuine senior footballer, because you're getting all their prime years. They've played enough senior football that you've got stuff that you can look back and measure how they perform. And that's yeah. And I agree on that. That's the problem with the market, is who's out there. There's a reason why Declan Rice is moving for £100 million. Arsenal are stupid, absolutely stupid. But also, DMs seem to be becoming the new centre halves. Like 5 years ago, centre halves were an absolute premium, and that's why Van Dijk goes for 70 million. That's why Harry Maguire goes for 80 million. You see it happen with goalkeepers. Top goalkeepers are now going for around 50 to 80 million pounds, because it's so hard to find top quality. There are a few positions where you need nailed on quality, and it costs money to get that. And maybe that's what we're seeing with the DMs, but I do. I agree. I'm a little concerned. I think Paulinho is the wrong age bracket as a short-term solution. The problem with short-term solutions is once that short-term is up, what do you do with them? Are they surplus to requirements after the year? And then you've spent a chunk of money, 40, 50 million pounds on a footballer who you don't need in the year after that and the year after that. That's dangerous ground. That's a slippery slope to basically spunking your budget and not being able to get the players that you want when you need them. Right, okay, cool. Let me just get through a couple more of these. Daniel Ward, is it such a bad thing if decent people / clubs are rinsing the Saudis for their cash? Let good people bankrupt them. I support Hendo's choice. I mean, for a start, you're not going to bankrupt the Saudis. You know what I mean? You're not going to do that. And I get that. Look, again, these moral issues are not issues that you can sum up in brief sentences and paragraphs and what have you. I don't think that's a bad point that you've made there. By the way, there'll be other people who see that as, I don't know, not a great source of getting the money. Some people care where the money comes from. There are people who care where the money comes from. Is the point? So yeah, I mean, again, it's like the whole thing of we live in a capitalist world. So I mean, the legendary Saskia Jade had this on Red Men and say, like, I think her expression was "get your bag, girl," and it was like, well, go and make the money while the money's there to be made. Is effectively what I believe she meant with that. She's a generation younger than me. So yeah, there's something to there is absolutely something to that. I don't think any of us can begrudge, and not until any of us happens to be in a situation where someone's going to offer us life-changing money to have a deep think about your morals. It's hard for us to have a real cast-iron judgment on a person. I think is probably the right way to look at it. But yeah, look, people are free to make their own decisions. Ultimately, there's nothing illegal about what he's doing. So it is ultimately, as I say, it's a moral question, and morals are very, very malleable. Morals exist person to person. Robin Hood says, I think the Henderson situation is linked to who we get to replace Fabinho. If we sign Lavia or similar, then we need more cover and should keep him. I think that's really smart. I agree with that one. I just don't think you can afford to lose both, because right now, I think, again, you're looking at the season starting, we needed McAllister and we needed Szoboszlai because we really needed to strengthen those areas of the midfield. If you could have reasonably made a choice. Let's say Liverpool had 50 million left in the budget or 40 million left in the budget, whatever. You could have reasonably made a case to go, if that's all we've got left, what do we need, a DM or a left-sided centre-half more? And you could have got one or the other and been a stronger side for it. Because I think in the DM situation, if you had to start the season and you've got Fabinho, Henderson, Thiago and Bajcetic, you can all play the six to different levels, but that's plenty of cover at a push, provided you then went and sort the defence out instead, in my opinion. I think that's fine, but all of a sudden, that's the problem with the Lavia thing. On his own, 90, that means your DMs are all of a sudden, if Henderson and Fabinho go, they are 18-year-old Stefan Bajcetic, 19-year-old Romeo Lavia, and 32-year-old Thiago Alcantara, maybe, and then some bits and pieces that could be done by McAllister or whatever. That's nowhere near as much strength in depth. So yeah, I think this is why we talk about the profile change, and Liverpool need to actually go and spend that money. Don't bother buying the next one. Go and buy one for now. Yeah, right. Let me see. The Tattoo Gardener says, "Hi Paul, in an ideal world, what signings would you like to see between now and the start of the season, mate? Cheers, Pete. Roll on the start of the season." Yeah. Okay. Ideal world signings. Honestly, I'll say names, and because ideal world and realistic world, I guess, are two different points. The profiles is, I want someone who's 22, 23, who's left-footed, has got pace and aerial presence to play effectively the left of the back three for Liverpool. Someone who can do roughly what Canate does, but with a left foot. And then can do, if needs be, they can do a bit of understudy work for Van Dijk. That is the next most important. Prior to all this shit, that was Liverpool for me next most important piece of transfer business. Levi Colwell's been floated. How possible that is, I really don't know. But he fits that model of what I'm talking about. People who have a greater depth of footballer knowledge might be able to suggest that there's better people out there. What is the name? I'm sure it'll come to me as I'm literally saying this sentence out loud. There is an Italian centre-half whose name I've gone completely blank on, who I think is like there would be the super senior option in that regard. Probably the best in class choice, but I can't. Bastoni. Is that it? Bastoni. Yeah. Would he be the one, I guess? And then DM, honestly, Casado would be probably about it, although I think he's a little short. I Losing Fabinho is, I honestly don't know, because I was preparing for life with Fabinho, and so you can just breathe easy because your second choice can be Ryan Gravenberch. In a world where you're keeping Fabinho, for me was perfect. Maybe a bit of Kefren Turan, perfect. Fits the model 6'4" footballers who've got pace and good on the ball, good passing range, a good in a decent in the tackle, good interceptors, although not necessarily specialist DMs, would have been spot on because you've got Fabinho there to learn the ropes off. Now, honestly, I could not tell you. I'm a little annoyed that not that he would have come and not that we could have afforded him, but could you have had a Declan Rice conversation if this had come in 2 weeks earlier? I don't know. I honestly don't know, and I'm not sure. Again, I'm a little. My opinion on Rice shifts every other day, to be perfectly honest. But good player. But maybe I'll disagree tomorrow. Yeah, honestly, no idea. Absolutely no idea. If Gravenberch hadn't been so crap for Bayern, I'd be saying him. But if he hadn't been so crap for Bayern, there'd just be zero chance of getting him out of Bayern. So it probably is him. I've seen my uncle. We were having a chat in the pub on Friday, Saturday afternoon. He's convinced that Calvin Phillips is the one, and I was until I delved into his stats and his availability, and I am no longer convinced that he's the one. He's a huge gamble for a team that's had so many injury problems. So yeah, if anyone's got answers to that question, please do let us know. Okay. Is Miracle to get Fabinho and Hendo off salary, oft books? Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, yeah. Look, and just to kind of reiterate these points, in a pure football sense, getting rid of a Fabinho for good money when there's a chance that he's on his way out, like his powers are waning. Like if we've had the best of Fabinho, then getting 40 million for him is brilliant. And there's a great answer to the question, by the way, and one we've missed out on from Ryan San Juan. Ugarte would have been perfect. Yeah, I agree on that one. And Jordan Henderson, 33 years old. If you get 10, 15, 20 million for him, then yeah, stellar deal. I'm repeating myself. I've said this on every single show for 2 weeks now. I always fear losing too much experience from these sides too soon. We've got all of a sudden, without them, a very, very young midfield and a very, very inexperienced midfield. Not being in the Champions League might help that, but also, are we going up against Manchester City, or are we going up against Man United and Newcastle for fourth? I think our experience stood us apart because no few other clubs had a James Milner who could be plugged into any position at any given game. And I know people scoffed at that a little bit, but I mean, James Milner played right back against Man City at Anfield when we beat them last season and had an absolute brilliant game in that game. That's not because he was a brilliant right back or he was a great defender or he was dead fast or any of those things. He's a step ahead in his head because that's what experience brings. You need that in certain circumstances, and I'm not sure. Look, Thiago's phenomenal. The problem is we might get a bid for Thiago in the coming weeks, and that would change the situation again. So yeah, that remains my concern on that. Jimmy Schwermer says. The real question is how many minutes this season can we get from Bajcetic? That's a big unknown. Honestly, for Bajcetic, we should be looking at about, I think, 1,500 if he's really good. You shouldn't be playing at all if he's not that good. And then building from there because you want to have a long-term career for this lad. I think putting a lot of pressure on 18-year-olds when you don't need to. Like some flourish and some fly, and he might be ready for that. He certainly didn't feel this time last year like he would have been anywhere near our first team. Certainly a potential. Certainly looking forward to seeing him have a good under-21 season. And he was fine when he played in that League Cup game against Man City as well, just after Christmas. But he kicked on in leaps and bounds after that. So he might be an absolute revelation. He might be able to make that step up immediately. He might be a generational talent. But I would be wary about placing that level of faith onto an 18-year-old because you just don't know how they're going to react to stuff. You just don't. Yes, right. Sounds okay. That's a good question. Let me see what else we got here. Let me go. Someone else back again says Hendo and Fab awful until the last 10 games. Fact. Oh, God, absolutely. Yeah, completely agree on that. But what made the last 10 games different is an important question. And the answer is Fabinho didn't have to play 2 games a week because we only had 1 game a week to play because we'd been knocked out of all the competitions by that point. When Fabinho went back to just being able to, that we could manage his minutes, his level returned closer to what we were expecting to, and similar for Henderson as well. They were badly overplayed because of how mismanaged the midfield had been and the availability. Some of it's bad luck and some of it's mismanagement. And I would still contend that Oxlade-Chamberlain and Keita getting injured last pre-season fucks the entire season that follows because you can't sell 2 injury-prone players who are injured, and especially ones that they don't want to leave. And then Curtis Jones having a bad injury as well. But let's not get lost into this. It makes people really angry. Yeah, I think we would have been fine to keep both of those players this season with the reinforcements. Like if we'd added McAllister, Szoboszlai and Lavia to a midfield that already had Thiago, Henderson, Fabinho, Elliott and Jones, you have got a great mix there of age, range and ability and different types of footballer. To be able to, and you can pick and choose better what you want. No more play Jordan Henderson for 20 games back to back and then wonder why his legs have fallen off. And the same for Thiago, whose legs would literally fall off after 10 games back to back. And the same for Fabinho. So yeah, that was the interesting point on this. But again, look, no room for sentiment in football, and maybe this is the kick up the arse that Liverpool need. Is a good one from Kieran KA. Arsenal kept Xhaka until replaced. Same for Fab. Yeah, and Liverpool's mission here now is like personal teams have agreed they're happy with the broad shape of the offer by the looks of it at 40 million. Slow play that now. Take your time. Make sure while but you've got one guy's on the phone to Al-Ittihad going, and sorry, could you just read term 24B on page 47 to me again, please? Just a little bit slower. While the guys in the room going on the phone to whomever going, right, what will you take for this player? What will you take for this player? What will you take for this player? That's what Liverpool's job is. So I agree. That might very well be the point there. Don't rush into this because, of course, the second Fabinho and Henderson go out the door, Liverpool's bargaining position gets so much worse because you've just sold your 2 DMs and you've got a bit of money to spend. Then your negotiation becomes when you're crying poverty, which Liverpool are very good at doing, and people get very wound up. People think Liverpool are poorer than they are. We saw this through the week when you had guys going on Sky Sports saying Liverpool are working very tight financial restrictions, and then they went and blew £60 million 2 days later on Szoboszlai. You've got to play the game, and it's harder to play the game when people know what card you've got in your hand. Don Cognon, we won't be buying anyone. I mean, we will. We just will. Right, sounds. Ian. Thank you, Ian. Fabinho, top 8 pass completion of all midfields, 22-23 for a bad season. He's not on the way, and he was run ragged covering for an A1 midfield. Still starts at 11. Yeah, and again, at 29, that was a big red flag last season that you need to be more careful with him. And I think we'll see the same with Andy Robertson this season coming as well, which is why I do think we need another left-sided centre-back. There's a chance here to avoid catastrophe by getting someone really good to back him up. He is a good player, and again, when minutes managed, he was a much better footballer for us last year. Pass completion, that's sad. It was just how slow and how sluggish he was. It was his interception rates, and it was the amount of how behind the play he was, which was very uncharacteristic. And you can say covering for an A1 midfield, but that wasn't what he was doing. He actually wasn't screening balls coming through the middle, which he was normally very good. His anticipation helped to keep Liverpool penning opponent players back in their own third. And he lost that element to his game this season through a variety of reasons, maybe because ultimately his legs have gone, but really because I agree, he was probably just knackered, to be honest. Okay. Someone else, 100% that and Trent coming into midfield covering. That's the other potential with this. Again, I think the plan is to keep Trent as an inverted fullback, and I think they will just do that. So I don't, we've had a lot of talk about, do we need an understudy right back? If we're not going to play a right back, we don't need to buy another right back. We do need someone who can help out Trent with that. And again, that's the thing about losing Henderson. He's a guy in the squad who can do a bit of that job, I believe. Not that we've seen it yet, but my gut feeling is he could do that. But you could just go back to 4-3-3. And here's a question, is it easier to go and buy a good right back or to go and buy a good midfielder? Can Trent do the 6? It's an unknown. I don't know. I'd rather see him a little bit freer, more in a double pivot, which allows him to be a bit more progressive with the ball. But that's a possibility. Liverpool have got options, but it does it only adds to what a mad, fascinating, unknowable summer this has been for Liverpool so far. NPBU, so super chats, 199, thank you. Hope Hendo stays and we invest in centre defensive midfielder and left centre back. Yeah, I agree. That would be ideal, but it's going to be a very awkward time for Jordan Henderson one way or the other, because this is the problem with this being leaked effectively, that he's agreed the deal. He's almost left his character open to scrutiny one way or the other. I've even said this on the stream, but I've certainly said it to a bunch of people. If transfers follow like they're meant to follow, i.e., you agree terms in private, but then a club bids and then Liverpool go, oh, we've accepted the bid, and then Jordan Henderson accepts, then it's, those bastards, Liverpool, they were the ones who made the call. They accepted the bid, and look, the offer was too much for me to turn down. Right now, it's like, it looks like Henderson's got money, and then Liverpool go, whoa, hold your horses, we don't really want to sell you, mate. If you really want to go because you want all this money, it makes Henderson out to be the bad guy, which is a bit shit for him. But I'm sure at £700,000 a week, I'm sure he'll be absolutely fine. Right. Jack Howe, thank you so much for all the super chats tonight, by the way. You're absolutely flying in. You guys are amazing. Jack Howe, footballers conveyor belt now, old out, new in. And look, Liverpool needs to get back to that, by the way. Look, I know I've been a staunch advocate of keeping older footballers at the club. I do think you need a mix. You need a blend. This whole you can't win anything with kids. People go, oh, Man United did. Yeah, but it wasn't exclusively with kids. They had Gary Pallister and Steve Bruce and Eric Cantona and Mark Hughes and God knows how many other, Dennis Irwin. They had plenty of experienced footballers in that time. It wasn't like 11 children that won the league for Man United. Alan Hansen wasn't wrong ultimately. It was a great soundbite at the time. Liverpool do need to get back to selling players before they lose value, and then reinvesting that value into the squad. That's how we're going to get back to on top and stay on top. Is the key. People get so wound up by the idea of sell to buy, but it's again self-sustaining. Get the most squeeze lemon juice you can out of your lemon, and then see if you can sell that lemon on to someone else to get something else out of it. You know what I mean? It's a piss poor analogy that I'll try better. Just get the most out of whatever you can and then fucking sack it off. Selling your car, get all the great years out of your car, and when it starts to come a little bit dodgy, sell it to someone else and let them worry about all the repairs that are going to be coming in the next year or two. That'll do. Fernando Torres is the absolute perfect example of this. Sensational footballer, world class. Liverpool sold a guy who basically had no legs for £50 million to Chelsea, and he was never the same footballer again after that. Do more of that, Liverpool. Right. We move on. Robin Hood, looking unlikely, but we should go balls deep for Caicedo. He's a real driving force and also gives tactical flexibility as he can cover Trent at right back. I totally agree. I think he's the one that's likely to move on that hasn't yet conclusively moved on, that would feel like we've turned a negative into a positive. Everyone else we're linked with there comes with huge question marks, and I find that concerning. You shouldn't be selling a first team footballer and then having unknowns. That's my opinion, anyway. Big John. This is exactly why some of us wanted midfielders added each year. This is the result of sitting on our hands. Everyone wanted midfielders adding each year, by the way, mate. It's more that it's how understanding you are of the pressures of the situations around it. And in hindsight, it's easy to look back and go, it was an absolute fucking stupid car crash of a decision. Full stop. It is. It's dead easy, and ultimately it's been born correct. I've said it before. I was speaking to Ian Air about this a couple of weeks ago. One of Jurgen's great strengths as a manager and how he conducts transfers is that he'd rather have the right player than the wrong player. He'd rather wait for the right player than buy a wrong player and can have them kicking around. And, and he had to live through the Liverpool rebuild with a bunch of players that Brendan Rodgers had insisted on that weren't right for Liverpool, weren't at the right level, got paid stupid long contracts, and he had to deal with the fallout of that. And he's wanted less of that as the future's worn on. And it's meant he's maybe had slightly smaller squads than would have been advisable. And this is a new challenge for him now in the 5 subs era of how does he carry a larger squad? Can he mitigate against that? But yeah, look, ultimately, you're right. You are right. I mean, this is the situation Liverpool have left themselves in. And that's the real problem with these bids is it's been a long time since anyone's come and turned the head of a Liverpool player. And I don't think we were expecting it to be Jordan Henderson. And that's probably given us a little bit more that's why this is a little bit more concerning. Right, sound. Ian says, Torres, big check, then fleeced, keep cash on low. Yeah, okay. Sverige Fredriksson. Rebuilding is fine, but if we lose Hendo and Fab, we'll start with the new building blocks strewn about the midfield. Slow starts the season, almost guaranteed. Exactly. What Liverpool needed to do was pick up where they left off. Now, we didn't end the season fabulously. We ended it in good form with real promise and some really strong positives to build around. And I genuinely felt like you can just do that again, but plug a couple of new, better players in who suited certain roles better. For example, that right-hand attacking 8. Szoboszlai suits it better than Henderson, so that should help. McAllister can do what Jones does, but might be a bit more experienced. That probably stood you in better stead just from game one. But I agree with that. That's going to be the difference. Why we don't have massive churn is because, again, there's so much to learn. Plugging one player in is easier than plugging 2 players in, and therefore incrementally, perhaps even exponentially more difficult when you then plug in 3 in. It's hard to measure. You're teaching an entire new midfield. The ideal, I think, is almost like you probably would have started the season with Fabinho, Jones and Szoboszlai, or Fabinho, McAllister, Henderson for a game or 2, and then slowly start to blood lads in and keep that momentum, get through that first month of the season. Hopefully you've got 3 wins under your belts, 3 or 4, whatever, and then you can kind of go from there. That's a little bit of a complication when you're making too many changes. You lose continuity, and what Liverpool have been built on is years and years of incremental builds and getting better and better and better. I think as much as we might look better on paper, what we can't ever measure is what's been lost. And it's in the fine moments of pure understanding of the system. It's being able to kick a ball backwards over your shoulder to the feet of a guy who you know where he's going to be and he knows where you're going to pass it. And that only comes with playing games and games and games and games and games together. And that's what we will lose if we have to start with a brand new midfield, which is what it looks like is going to happen, which is a bit of a concern. But not to end this on a total downer, take that money that you've earned from Fabinho, and if that can help you get better in the transfer market than you were planning on getting, then you can turn it into a positive, and then do some intensive training and see how you get on with it. Yes. Right, sound. I just want to draw your attention to a couple of things. If you've got some more comments, keep them coming in. This will take me a minute or 2. Our brand new book is available to pre-order right now on redmanmerch.com. Bobby Firmino, Best in the World. You'll have seen the documentary probably by now. We've done a book as well, which is filled with stats. It's filled with wonderful stories, amazing artwork done by some great Liverpool artists. It's got incredible photos of his time. So if you want to get an old school, sort of poster book as well, if you want to cannibalize it, it will cut me to the core that you cut this book apart. But you can put stuff up on your walls if you're that way inclined. Some absolutely brilliant stuff. It is a visual marvel and tells a great tale of one of the greatest players ever to wear the number 9 for Liverpool. You can scan the QR code. There's the author signed edition. That'll take you straight through to there. That's going to be signed by me, by Dan, and by Steve, who worked tirelessly over the last few weeks to get this to print. Get it ordered now. Very limited run on that one. So whether you love Bobby Firmino yourself or you've got someone in your family loves Bobby, then have that in mind mind. You know, this is one of those things where I'd say, and it's July. If you're the kind of person who thinks ahead of Christmas, and I know that might make you want to be sick in your mouth, there's a chance these will be long gone by then. It is a perfect present for someone who loves Bobby Firmino, whether that's you or someone else in your life. So get that pre-ordered if you can. Right. Sound. Yes. One final thing. We've got a 50% code to redmenplus.com. To get a 50% off a Captain yearly subscription. The code is Bobby, BOBBY, and you can scan the QR code on screen right now to take you through. 50% off a yearly subscription, so half price. The code ends tonight. So it's the last few hours to grab yourself a huge bargain on what we're doing here. That's videos, podcasts, the transfer window up until September. Neil Jones in twice a week doing Journo Insight. Dan Club's been doing expert insights as well. So anytime there's a coach to be spoken to, or a journalist, or any kind of avenue you want to know more about when it comes to player signings, players going in, players going out, we've got the transfer market boxed on Redmen Plus. There's also all 3 episodes of the Bobby Doc, and again, I fill your boots with amazing podcasts and videos and all that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, loads of boss stuff going on, but it's the last few hours to grab yourself 50% off that yearly subscription. So head over to redmenplus.com and use that code Bobby to get that before it runs out. Anyway, thank you so much for that. Right, thank you so much to everyone who joined. Thank you so much, in particular, to Brace DeVille, regular commenter. Said, nice one, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us. Lee Wizkid, any chance of a monthly code for those of us on the dole? That's the one to use, mate. That is the biggest discount we'll ever give. And because it's a yearly one-off thing, it's literally a one-off fee. So you do that, get it for the full year, so you don't have to worry about recurring payments coming out of your bank account, so you'll know where you stand. Because I know the big problem, and I know I have this, when you add subscriptions, it's like you think you've got money and then a random bit of dough will come out at a random part of the month. If you've got a little bit, go and get it sorted. And get a bag of used lemons as well. Right. Christ. Okay, cool. The good thing is that obviously Liverpool got a lot of time left in this transfer window to get it sorted. We hope that they will do things right. Ragnar Klavan is a great shout, Jerry Loke. But other than that, right. Sound. We will be back with more tomorrow. I think I'm on with Neil Jones on Journo Insight, so come and join me over there with your new 50% off yearly subscription. And I'm going live on Twitch in about 10, 15 minutes or so as well. So twitch.tv/the Redmen TV. Anyway, have a boss evening. You guys are absolutely awesome. I'm Paul Machin. And this has been the Redmen Fan Interactive Show. See you soon. So pre-season is just around the corner for the mighty Reds, but if you want to spend your days, weeks and hours celebrating a Liverpool legend, then check out Bobby Firmino, Best in the World, our 3-part documentary series, episodes 2 and 3 exclusively streaming on redmenplus.com right now, with full interviews from so many of our amazing contributors, including the Liverpool skipper Jordan Henderson, the greatest goal scorer the club's ever seen, Ian Rush, and a hell of a lot more. Right now, go to redmenplus.com. All episodes of Bobby Firmino, Best in the World, streaming today.